Guys, before I actually go to sleep tonight, I wanted to try to talk about my mindset for my workers' compensation case. All right, I'm going to try to keep it brief. So, to keep it brief, I'll start, it's 2025. So, I'll tell you that in 2020, I took a position as a management trainee for Hertz Rental Car Company. The reason that I took the job is because I was looking to get back into management. After years of looking to try to get back into management, because I was in management early in my 20s, I couldn't find work for a number of years. I remember I was unemployed for 2 years trying to figure out how to get back into management. Because early in my career, I was able to find success right after college, landing a job as a business analyst slash project manager. But to be fair, I didn't know what I was doing. It was a new job to me, new job title, something that I hadn't quite been introduced to before. And I have to thank the company that actually hired me, that gave me that position, because it opened my eyes up to positions like that. It's a decent paying job, good work-life balance. And what they did is they offered me a permanent position because I went in on a contract in accounting. My young mind at the time didn't know that I should have taken that accounting job as opposed to, the next 2 years being unemployed because I couldn't find work. Still trying to navigate my knowledge of the working environment, right? So I don't blame anyone for me not being able to find equitable work, but I was taught that if you have a certain position, that you should be able to go laterally over to that position. But when I first got out of college, I didn't understand the mindset of HR, right? So HR has a different theory than what I thought, right? So I was a operations manager for my brother-in-law for about 3 years. I thought that was enough to get into an operations manager role at a larger company, and that's not true, right? Because my operations manager skill set over at my brother-in-law's company was completely different from what HR needed over at Staples. Completely different roles. Like my brother-in-law, because it was a small business, I learned accounting. I was doing like QuickBooks. I was learning operations. I was learning management. I learned a lot of high-level activity, whereas in a ops manager role over at like a company like Staples, you're running numbers, you're in meetings. The position and title are completely different. In my 20s, I didn't understand that. It wasn't a conversation that I openly had with anyone to really understand my position. And I didn't have the mindset that I should start at an entry-level position and work my way up, right? Because I had already had this, what some people see as a senior management position. And, I talked to my brother-in-law about it. He apologized, and I didn't know why he was apologizing, but I get it now. It kind of set me up with a certain mindset that, well, the benefit is that it gave me a certain level of confidence, right? The drawback or the cons about having that type of mindset when you're in 20s is that I wasn't mentally in the right space to take on a position in corporate America, right? I was hopping around to different companies trying to solve my personal needs. I wasn't taking my job serious enough. No, not that I wasn't taking my job serious enough, because I'm a company man. I respect my employer, right? But I was making decisions based on my personal situation. I had a girl who I was dating, who I wanted to marry. I was trying to figure out how to do that. I thought that I had to make a certain level of income. And then also I was reading about how people in the ops manager role were making double what I was making, right? So when I went to Staples, they said, I think that you'd be best at this role. This matches what you were making. when you are an ops manager, and then it also matches the number of years of experience that you have. And I didn't appreciate that back then, um, but in hindsight, I would have done it. When they were telling me to be patient, we understand that you've had this role. Just be patient, and eventually you'll get back into that role. We imagine higher than the person that, I mean, sooner than the person who's above you. Now, the guy above me, his name was Paul. Um, and he had been working at the company for I think 15 years before they decided to give him a an ops manager role. He was next in line after Derek, right? Are their names? Derek was the operations manager when I was there at Staples, and Paul was next in line. He had been at the company for about 15 years, but he only had a high school education. So they told me that they imagined, since I had a bachelor's degree at that time and experience as an ops manager, that I just need to be patient, work in my role, and then I can apply to become an operations manager. And I wish I was humble enough or had the right support system, meaning my girlfriend at the time or someone to talk to about it, because I think I would have done that. I think the other drawback and the reason why I left Staples was because they had a rotational program, and I really wanted that rotational program, but they were only giving it to people that had high GPAs. So it was going to take time for me to get into that role. And I just said, I don't think I have that type of time. I'm not making the type of money that I want to make. And honestly, I was comparing myself to one of my friends in high school who they had the support structure to get a high GPA fresh out of school. I had the same support, just not the same structure, right? I didn't have my dad like on me trying to do this. I had only my mother. And me being a man, especially when I was younger, I don't think a single parent mother can guide a young man on everything that he needs to do, right? That was always my opinion. I still believe that in today's society, like a man has to teach a man how to do certain things. Fortunately, my mother's been enough of a support that I feel and I know that I've been able to survive on a certain level. And I have enough of a connection with my dad to understand certain things. I've always had a connection with my dad. So I think that helps. Long story short, and the point that I'm trying to make, and I'm talking about mindset in this video, is that when I went to Ocean State Job Lot, after years of working in positions that don't pay a lot of money, I spent 4 years working as a cook, and then prior to going, and then after working as a cook, I started saying, I need to get back into management. I want to buy a house. I want to, put a white picket fence around my house. I can't survive and make a living in this role, so I have to get out of it. So then I went over to Hertz thinking, because they had a management training program, we talked about getting into management. They tell you that you can be a branch manager within 12 to 18 months, which is great. But if you have ever worked at Hertz, that's not true at all, because you get there, and there's another guy named Rob. You get there and you're bogged down with work, right? If you want to have good numbers, like I had good numbers at my branches, right? Because technically we were branch managers, even though we didn't have the branch manager title. Like after 6 months of working there, I was running my own branch. I had authority over what to do, but I still had to reach out to my managers to figure everything out. My branch was a high demand, high volume branch. From 8 to 5, the phones didn't stop ringing. I had to clean all the cars. they introduced the TNC program, which is the Uber program, right? So you can rent a car from Avis, Budget, uh, Hertz, at a discount to drive for Uber. So they introduced that. Um, it's a lot for one person to manage at a branch alone, and I complained for a number of years. I remember I had a 50 reservation day because, and 50 is a lot. You know, normal reservations are between at the branches that I worked at were between maybe 8 and 15 per day. That's how many you're going to get. You never walk in and have 50, and it's because they weren't limiting reservations from coming through the system. In the rental car industry, they don't do active inventory, meaning they don't account for how many cars are on the lot when you're making a reservation. And many customers don't know that. They think, and I too was in this mindset, that when you make a reservation online, you're guaranteed a car, and that's not true, because there are too many variables. Like there's maintenance. You don't know if you're going to get a car back that has maintenance, um, maintenance due, inspections, all these different variables. So it's hard to tell, especially for a business, to tell a customer no, right? Like, don't book a reservation. In the rental car industry, they want you to make a reservation, and the mindset is, if you make a reservation, we'll get the car for you. And so far at my branches, we were always, my demand was high, so was our and I can't think at the moment, but yeah, we met customer demand almost always. There were times where we couldn't, um, but we met customer demand. What I'm trying to say is that I went into Hertz with the mindset that I would be able to ascend to a branch manager role, but because of the work that was provided, the requirements to get there, it was extremely difficult. When they did layoffs in February of 2024, after I had worked there almost 4 years, I mentally could not tell myself that I want to go back into that role. When they did a layoff, they said, we can get you back into the company, but you would be at the same management trainee two role, and you'll be there for the next year. Unfortunately, you have to start completely over. And I said, you know what? I can't do this. I cannot go back into this work environment, these working conditions, and try to stay completely humble, knowing that I could have ran this entire branch 3 years ago, right? I know how to do all of this. I've been doing this. I did this before. This is easy for me. It's management, it's operations. I know this stuff like the back of my hand. So after almost 4 years of working there, they did layoffs in February 2024. I thought that it would be easy for me to find work. Little did I know that I would be applying for jobs, trying to get an interview for 6 months, right? I only had 6 months of unemployment. I had one interview in 6 months for project manager roles. I had already, oh no, during that time, I also acquired a certificate from Bryant University in project management. And I got a high GPA on that. So I thought for sure I could get a project manager role. Like I said, I only had one interview. And after 6 months, I had run out of unemployment. I had no source of income other than Uber, because I had decided to Uber to offset the fact that I wasn't making enough money through unemployment. So at the end of 6 months, my back was against the wall. What am I going to do next? Do I have to Uber full time, even though I was doing that some weeks? Uber full time in order to try to make a living. If you've ever driven for Uber, you don't make any money. You only make revenue. And many people don't see that, especially a lot of Uber and Lyft drivers. You can work a full 40 hours and still not make any money because it's all revenue. You have to account for your expenses. maintenance, and I accounted for depreciation on my vehicle as well because I own my vehicle. Um, a tip is that if you're going to drive for Uber or Lyft, rent a car, where the rental car agencies eat the cost of maintenance. And if you can, try to do an EV, or at least it was advantageous to do an EV in 2024 because there were free charge stations around the state. Um, but back to the story. I was unemployed, 6 months, completely ran out of unemployment. Fortunately, at the end of the 6 months, it just so happens, I don't know if it was because of me or reaching out to the Department of Labor and Training, asking, like calling, saying, hey, listen, I need help. I'm running out of unemployment. Can you call me? He said, oh, we have 2 employers coming in this week. Can you make it? I said, okay, great. I'll make it. And then I was talking to them about, being a recent graduate at Bryant University. I thought that they could help me try to find a project management job, and that's not what they do. What they do is employers come in and you can sit down and interview with whoever's hiring, right? So there are 3 companies that were hiring, no, 2 companies, and it was Ocean State Job Lot and Bank of America. I made it to both meetings. I think they were both in the same week. In that week, I landed both jobs, right? So I interviewed, got Bank of America, interviewed, got Ocean State Job Lot. Ocean State Job Lot was to start the very next week, and I knew that I needed to get out of Ubering because I wasn't making any money. I needed a static position where I don't have to expense anything, right? I can show up to the job, I'm making money, and that money's not instantly going back into my car. I have decision-making ability with the income that I make. So Ocean State Job Lot looked good, especially when the initial interview I was conversing with them about ascending to management because I had heard of certain CEOs that were able to get manager positions off of a temporary contract. I wasn't so lucky. When I had conversations with Ocean State Job Lot, and I was trying to tell them my working conditions, they decided that there were other candidates who were more qualified than me, even though I had more experience than them, to get into what they call lanyard positions. There's a red lanyard and a blue lanyard. I was trying to negotiate to get into those positions while they were grooming me because it wasn't like a hard no, like, no, we're not gonna get you into the position. It was more like, we need more time to evaluate you because you haven't been at the company long enough. I didn't think the other guy had been there long enough, but he was Italian American, or something like that, and all of the management they're all Italian American or something like that. So me being an African American with the same or more experience than him, I can't convince them to allow me to get there, right? Being the token black guy, I can't convince these people to allow me to get into a management position, regardless of my experience and my education. It's been tough. So, I go in there, that's my mindset, that's my working condition. I'm there to work. The conversations are going well that I could get into a management position. And then also I need this job because my back's against the wall. I don't have enough money to be able to survive if I do not have this job. This is my only source of income. I don't have investments to pay me. I don't have a large support on asking my friends and family for money. Maybe I can in the future, but it's not something that would be immediate. And honestly, I just want to, I'm not someone who wants a free handout. I've always wanted to work for the things that I have. This is what I tell people all the time. They, I get asked on the street sometimes because of where I live. They're like, oh, what do you do for money? Because I'm clean shaven some days. I try to dress well some days. Um, and it's always like the only answer that I can give to younger people who might be asking what you have to do to be successful, even though I'm not successful. I'm successful in, taking care of myself. That's, you know, I'm not a financial success. I'm not there yet. I have all these ideas. I have the wherewithal. I have the ability, possibly, to get there, but I've struggled to find equitable work. I had to take a job over at Ocean State Job Lot, Ocean State Job Lot is a great company. Don't get me wrong. But they didn't listen to me when I told them that I can't do certain jobs. Um, I can't do that. I can't physically lift that box because I don't want to hurt myself. I know this because I've been around and in management for a long time. I know that you can be injured, but I couldn't tell myself to not work, right? My back was against the wall financially. I had no other source of income. I needed to work here because if I didn't show up that week, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to tell my family that I can't pay my bills, right? Not only sacrificing, or not sacrificing, but having to go through the embarrassment of having to ask, or not being able to do certain things. It's a struggle for me. It's a struggle for me to wake up and say, "Oh no, I can't do that anymore." Right? Just like basketball. I stopped playing basketball because I was just like, my body's not responding the same way that I wanted to. I'm not as young, right? We're getting older. I talked to a doctor. My body's a little bit older than it should be, and I'm trying to find a way to be my correct age. Um, I'm an old man. I've been an old man, and that could be that's health and nutrition. There are ways to fix that. But I went, yeah. But I'm trying to say that I went to trying to say that I'm educated a certain way. I have leadership and management experience, and I went into Ocean State Job Lot trying to secure a role. They were on board, and during that process of them training me on different systems within Ocean State Job Lot, I hurt my back. I tried to talk to management, and I did report to management that I had hurt my back. I consulted with my doctors, and the doctors that I spoke to didn't think it was an immediate need for me to not work, to stay out of work, right? So let's define work. When I told them that I had switched to a desk job as opposed to having to sit. So when I originally tweaked my back at Ocean State Job Lot, I was on register training. While I was on register training, my back didn't hurt. I could stand for 6 to 8 hours, didn't have any trouble when I went home, especially because the week prior to being on POS training, I had rested the entire week because I had read that if you rest your body, 3-4 days, your body can go through healing, especially, I don't know if it's exactly 3 or 4 days, but it's resting your body. You have to rest your body. So that's exactly what I did. I rested. I didn't go out and do much. I think I ordered food online. I rested. And after a day or two of just resting, my back didn't seem to have any trouble. So it was when they opened the new store in Warwick, and we were essentially asked to be laborers. I mean, of course, part of the job is to lift boxes from the U-boats onto the shelves from the pallets. You might do that for a couple of hours, take a break. And then go back to doing something else. Or at the time I was still training, so I wasn't doing that the entire shift. I would work like a 6-hour shift. I'd probably be on replenishment for a couple hours, take a break, and then before we went to the new store, they even told me, because I told them that I had hurt my back. They were like, yeah, just take it slow, only do what you can, don't do more than what you can. So I did that for I took everything extremely slow. I didn't want to hurt my back. And then eventually, I did tell, I had told Tim first day that I couldn't do it. And I don't think they did enough to speak to me. I didn't know where to get resources to tell them that I couldn't do the job. And then, of course, I was afraid to be fired because I'm new. And if you go in and complain to an employer, tell them that you can't do a job, last I checked, an employer, if you can't do the job, they're going to ax you, right? I didn't think that they would reassign me, but I did try I tried. After I hurt my back, I did try to get a reassignment. I was like, my back can heal if you put me on a register or something like that. Get me off of the boxes. Essentially what I was trying to tell the manager, Therese, like, get me off of this. I hurt my back. I can no longer perform this. But they stopped responding. They didn't extend my contract into a full-time employment. I do know that I'm still in good standing with Ocean State Job Lot, but because they didn't negotiate with me, they weren't going to give me a blue lanyard or a red lanyard, any sort of management position. I went to Bank of America. Bank of America was paying $8 more an hour. It was in a position that in my 20s I would have never taken, so I had to mature into taking that position. But they too, Bank of America, has a 1-year policy. So for me, I have to work in whatever position I accept for 1 year, right? Me accepting a position at Bank of America, I was in the same position I was at prior to working at Ocean State Job Lot. I didn't have any money. I had no source of income. And Bank of America was my only source of income. Luckily for me, because I had done my finances, I was able to save just a little bit of money, more than what I was able to save before, so that I could have a savings fund. And that's how I've gotten to this point now where I've been out of work on unpaid medical leave for about 6 or 7 weeks. I'm now at the point where I don't have any money again, because the money that I saved working from at Bank of America, the little bit of money, I'm now dwindling. So I have to go back to work because TDI did not approve my claim. I can't actually speak to someone over there to get them to look at my claim. I have a valid claim. I followed Rhode Island law, and I followed what I know to do with injuries. I did exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm asking my attorneys to actually look at the case and stop being drones. I'm trying to find someone who can help me with my case. So I'm recording videos. I'm contacting the local news department. I'm trying to get the right people who would actually care about my situation to help, because workers' compensation cases take too long. If I am to win this case, which I'm supposed to, I have every right, and Ocean State Job Lot needs to pay for the conditions in which they made me work under. I need to be able to support myself. I'm forced to go back to work. I don't know how my back is going to respond. As you can see, I have shaven to try to put my best foot forward while working. I don't know if I'm going to have to call out again. Um, my mindset with Bank of America is hopefully within Bank of America, I can find a project manager role where I can work, hopefully even with a bad back, or at least until I can find a resolution, healing for my back issue. I'm optimistic that I can find a position because my back doesn't hurt every day, but I've noticed that it's not getting better. I have to ice more frequently now. Um, I'm eating healthy, so my energy's up, but I still have to pace myself and I have to plan accordingly. Like I'm not out. I used to be out of my house 10, 12 hours of the day. I can't do that right now without some sort of pain or having to take some over the counter medicine. Today I went to Walmart and just couldn't, it hurt to walk around. So I'm still trying to navigate how to manage the pain in my body and in my back, which all started when working for Ocean State Job Lot. All right, so this is part 3, I believe, of the video series where I'm trying to document my progress, my mindset. This video is about mindset, mindset working at Ocean State Job Lot, and my mindset overall of trying to make a living to pay for myself. I'm someone who has become dependent on government programs, but I don't want to be reliant on them. I was unemployed twice, and because of the unemployment programs, I was able to survive then. I'm still depending on TDI now. Hopefully that gets approved. Hopefully, and I may have to request for my job to, give me more time out of work, in order for me to take care of my back. I need a back specialist who understands working conditions, meaning a strenuous back issue, which becomes worse by activity, right? So working, I'm trying my best to lay down. I'm resting a lot more. I don't want to overwork my back. The only times that I really go out and do anything is if my back isn't really in pain, or some days I have to do certain things, like I have to go to the workers' compensation court case, so I have to like ice my back the day before, and sometimes right after, like when I get home, I have to ice my back again. And then I'm trying to build some sort of engine so that I have that generational wealth. I don't 100%, I have a plan for it, but it's hard to act. Not People don't always respond to my advertisements. It's hard when people don't believe that you need help and I'm asking for help. I'm optimistic that someone will, God will answer my prayers, get me the help that I need in order for me to get back to the life that I had prior to working at Ocean State Job Lot, where I didn't have a back issue. I didn't have to ice my body every day or take over the counter medicine or the medicine that I was given by one of my doctors for anti-inflammatory. And it seems to be, well, yeah, I'm going to talk to my doctors because, I'm not someone who's clear of all medical issues. But I'm going to continue to keep trying as best as I can. But this video is about my mindset when going into Ocean State Job Lot, my mindset of trying to survive, and trying to stay off of government programs that don't pay nearly enough for someone to live on. All right, I'm getting sleepy. Good night, and God bless.